What if I told you that most tomato failures, the drooping plants, the diseases, the zero fruit, come down to just a handful of fixable mistakes? I've grown tomatoes in hot, humid, unforgiving southern soil, where the clay is so bad it barely qualifies as dirt, and I've figured out what actually works. Today, I'm sharing everything: variety selection, soil prep, watering, fertilizing, disease prevention, and one weird trick involving a cabbage leaf that genuinely saves my harvest every single summer. Stick around. This video could be the difference between a handful of sad tomatoes and 200+ fruits by the end of the season. Yes, really, I kept count. Let's start at the very beginning, and most people skip this step entirely. Variety selection. Here's the hard truth. Not every tomato was built for your climate. Some of those gorgeous heirlooms you see in magazines, they struggle badly in heat and humidity. I'm talking about certain big heirlooms and beefsteaks, stunning when they yield, but some seasons you might only pull 8 to 10 tomatoes off one plant. In a good year, maybe 3 times that. That's still not a lot. Now, I'm not saying don't grow them. Grow what you love, but go in with realistic expectations and balance them with high-yield varieties. This right here is your secret weapon: cherry tomatoes. I've personally counted over 200 to 250 fruits from a single cherry tomato plant in one season. They're productive, they're resilient, and they keep coming. Pro tip: if you live in the South, or anywhere with hot summers, look specifically for varieties that are bred for heat. The names often give it away. Words like sun, southern, or heat on the label or seed packet are a good sign. And if you're unsure, call your local agricultural extension office. They know your region and can save you a lot of heartbreak. The bottom line? Don't put all your hopes in one variety. Plant a mix. Grow some for flavor, some for yield. Now, soil. This is where most gardeners either win or lose the whole season before a single plant goes in the ground. My native soil here is pure clay, no organic matter, terrible drainage, basically concrete when it dries out. And yet, I grow tomatoes in it. Here's how. The goal is to transform your soil into something alive. I dig my beds by hand, no rototiller, using a sturdy garden fork and spade. I loosen the ground about 20 inches deep, and then I start layering in organic matter: fallen autumn leaves I've stockpiled, homemade compost, kitchen scraps, vegetable peels, eggshells, which contribute calcium as they break down over time, leaf mold from the woods, and purchased composted cow manure. Here's a crucial tip: don't just layer these materials on top and leave them. Work them into the clay. Incorporate everything together. That's what breaks up compaction and gets organic matter doing its job deep in the ground. And speaking of compaction, avoid tilling. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but here's why. Tilling kills earthworms, disrupts soil microbes, and injects oxygen into the ground that rapidly burns off your organic matter. You end up with a net loss of nutrients. Do your one major deep dig, incorporate your amendments, and then leave the soil structure alone going forward. After planting, add 3 to 4 inches of oak leaves as mulch. This does 4 things at once: moderates soil temperature, conserves moisture, suppresses weeds, and breaks down slowly to add even more organic matter. For tomatoes specifically, there's a bonus. Mulch prevents soil-borne disease spores from splashing up onto your lower leaves during rain. More on that in a minute. Soil pH check. Get a soil test. Your local agricultural extension service will analyze it for free or very cheap, tell you if you need lime, and how much to bring your pH close to 6.5, the sweet spot for tomatoes. They'll also flag any missing nutrients. This is one of the most underused tools in home gardening. Quick but important checklist before we move on. Sunlight. Tomatoes are sun lovers. Non-negotiable minimum is 7 to 8 hours of direct sunlight per day. If your spot gets less than that, move your garden. No amount of great soil and watering will compensate for shade. Drainage. Make sure your soil drains well. Tomatoes sitting in waterlogged soil are an invitation for root rot and disease. Deer. If you have deer in your area, fence your garden. I use heavy-grade deer netting on sturdy metal posts. For narrow beds, the 4-foot-wide netting works great. Deer simply don't bother jumping it if the space looks tight. For larger areas, I stick long poles and branches into the ground inside the fence line. Deer are cautious. They won't jump into a space that looks cluttered and unpredictable. This sounds simple, but it works. Tomatoes need consistency, and water is where a lot of people get it wrong, either too much, too little, or inconsistently. The target is 1.5 to 2 inches of water per week. Drip irrigation is ideal because it delivers moisture directly to the roots without wetting the foliage. Wet foliage is an open door for disease. Here's a counterintuitive one. When your tomatoes have nearly ripe fruit, back off the water a little. Too much water at that stage actually dilutes the flavor. You've done all that work growing beautiful tomatoes. Don't water down the taste at the finish line. Consistency beats volume. A slow, steady moisture supply is what keeps tomatoes from splitting, blossom end rot, and flavor loss. Fertilizing tomatoes isn't one size fits all. You actually need to adjust what you're feeding them depending on where they are in their growth cycle. Let me break this down simply. Phase 1. Young plants. When your tomatoes are young and just establishing themselves, prioritize nitrogen. Nitrogen is what drives leafy, vigorous growth. Use a fertilizer with a moderately higher N value. Phase 2. Flowering and fruiting. Once flowers appear and fruit starts setting, shift your focus to phosphorus and potassium. These support root development, flowering, and fruit quality. Switch to a balanced fertilizer. Decent amounts of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But don't overdo the nitrogen at this stage. Too much N now means leafy plants with fewer fruits. Phase 3. Throughout the season, 2 or 3 times during the growing season, I apply a liquid micronutrient supplement. We're talking manganese, magnesium, iron, zinc, copper, boron, calcium. These trace elements don't show up in regular fertilizers, but tomatoes need them for optimal health. You'll see it listed on the label as a complete micronutrient product. Think of fertilizing like fueling a car. You need the right fuel for each stage of the journey. Okay, this is the section that saves gardens. Tomatoes are notorious for disease: early blight, late blight, fusarium wilt, septoria leaf spot. Let me walk you through the prevention system I use. Step 1. Remove the bottom foot of foliage. Once your plants are established, strip off the lowest 12 inches of leaves. This dramatically increases airflow around the base of the plant. And since many fungal diseases travel from the soil upward, removing that lower foliage breaks the chain. Yes, it looks a little bare at first. Do it anyway. Step 2. Choose disease-resistant varieties. When you're buying seeds or transplants, look for the letters after the variety name on the label. V, F, N, T, A. These stand for resistance to verticillium wilt, fusarium wilt, nematodes, tobacco mosaic virus, and alternaria. The more letters, the better protected you are. This is especially important if you've had disease problems in the past. Step 3. The aspirin trick. Yes, aspirin. Every 2 weeks, or ahead of a stretch of rainy weather, I spray my tomato plants with a diluted aspirin solution. Aspirin contains salicylic acid, which activates the plant's own immune response. It's like giving your tomatoes a booster shot. Mix 1 regular uncoated aspirin per gallon of water and spray the foliage. This is backed by research. It's called systemic acquired resistance, or SAR. Your plants essentially go on alert and become more resistant to disease. Step 4. Mulch. We already covered this, but it bears repeating. That 3 to 4 inch mulch layer stops soil-borne spores from splashing up during rain. This alone can dramatically reduce early blight. Now I want to talk about something that stumps a lot of gardeners in the South, or really anywhere with hot summers. You're doing everything right. Your plants look great. And then, nothing. No fruit. The flowers just drop. What is going on? Pollen death. Every tomato variety has a temperature range within which its pollen stays viable. Above that range, the pollen literally denatures. It dies. Dead pollen can't fertilize the flowers, which means no fruit sets. In the South, July and August can bring tomato production to a complete halt. Not because of disease or pests, but simply because it's too hot to pollinate. Here's what I do, and this sounds almost too simple, but it works. When I see a young flower cluster forming, I cover it with a cabbage or broccoli leaf during the hottest part of the afternoon. That small amount of shade is enough to drop the temperature by several degrees, just enough to keep the pollen alive. You can also use the mesh bags that avocados are packaged in. They're light, breathable, and perfect for draping over a small cluster. For a bigger scale solution, use shade cloth over the top or the west-facing side of your plants. It comes in percentages: 30%, 40%, 50% shade. The west side matters because that's where the brutal late afternoon sun hits. Bonus tip: after the morning dew has dried and the flowers are fully open, gently tickle or tap the open flowers. This mimics the vibration of bees and releases the pollen, helping the flowers self-pollinate. It takes about 30 seconds, and it genuinely boosts fruit set. If you garden in the south and you've never tried this, I promise you, do it this summer. You will see a difference. So let's bring this all together. Growing great tomatoes isn't one thing, it's a system, and every part of it reinforces the others. Choose the right varieties for your climate, especially heat-tolerant ones if you're in a warm region. Build your soil deeply with organic matter, don't till, and mulch heavily after planting. Test your soil pH and get it close to 6.5. Fence against deer. Don't skip this. Water consistently, 1.5 to 2 inches per week, and back off when fruit is nearly ripe. Fertilize in phases. Nitrogen early, phosphorus and potassium once flowering starts, micronutrients throughout. Prevent disease by removing lower foliage, choosing resistant varieties, spraying diluted aspirin every 2 weeks, and mulching. Fight summer heat with shade cloth, leaf covers on flower clusters, and manual pollination. Plants that are stress-free and well-supported are naturally more resistant to disease and pest pressure. Everything on this list is about creating ideal conditions so your tomatoes can do what they're designed to do: grow, flower, and fruit. The biggest takeaway I want you to leave with today: healthy tomatoes start with healthy soil, and healthy soil is something you build, one season at a time. Start this year, even if it's messy, even if your soil is terrible clay. Trust the process. If you found this helpful, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel grow. Subscribe if you want more in-depth gardening content like this. And drop a comment below, what's the biggest tomato struggle you've dealt with? I read every one. Now go get your hands dirty. Happy growing.